Okay, we're going to continue on 10.1 on the model problems, page 521. Your turn, number 6, at the bottom. A hiker averages 1.5 miles per hour when walking downhill on a mountain trail, and 0.8 miles per hour on the return trip when walking uphill. Find the total time in terms of D. Use the formula T equals D over R. Now, when it says in terms of in terms of D, that means that D will be part of your answer. So I have T equals distance over rate. Time equals distance over rate. So we're looking for time. So time equals, we know that he walked downhill at a rate of 1.4 miles per hour, but it doesn't tell us the distance. And then we know he went back uphill at a slower rate of 0.8 miles per hour, the exact same distance. So we're looking for time in terms of D. Well, here again, I have to get a common denominator. So my common denominator would be 1.4 times 0.8. 1.4 times 0.8, because I need both of those denominators to be able to go into these. And when you have numbers, the easiest thing to do is just to multiply them. So what would I multiply 1.4 by to get 1.4 times 0.8? I would multiply this by 0.8. So this would be 0.8D. What would I multiply this by to get this right here? It's missing the 1.4, so I would multiply my numerator by 1.4. So this would be 1.4D. Then I would just add my two numerators because I have like denominators. So 0.8 and 1.4 is going to be 2.2D over, when I multiply 1.4 times 0.8, that will give me 1.12. Okay, your turn, number 7. Let's go back to that problem. We could simplify that. If we move this decimal over, that would be 220 over 112D. And then I would need to reduce that to 55 over 28D. Do not leave it as decimals. Go ahead and make it, let's go ahead and get rid of the decimals. All right, your turn, number 7, top of page 522. Yvette ran at an average speed of 6.20 feet per second during the first 2 laps of the race, and an average speed of 7.75 feet per second during the second 2 laps of the race. Find her total time in terms of D, the distance around the race course. So we're still looking at time equals distance divided by rate. Let's look at her first average speed. Her first average speed is going to be 6.20 per second during the first 2 laps. So her distance is going to be 2D because we're talking about 2 laps around the racetrack. Then she's going to run another 2 laps, which would make 4. And this time her speed is going to be 7.75 feet per second. My common denominator is going to be 6.2 times 7.75. 6.2 times 7.75. What would I multiply this 2D by to get a common denominator? 6.20, 7.75. I would need to multiply this by 7.75. And 7.75 times 2D will give me 15D. This denominator into this denominator over here would be times 6.2. 6.2. 6.2 times 2D would give me 12.4D. $15D plus 12.4D would give me 27.4D over, when I multiply 6.2 times 7.75, I will get 48.05. If I move my decimals over 2 places to the right, this will be 2740 over 4805D. Now, since my numerator is smaller than my denominator, we can't help but get a decimal on this one. So my final answer would be 0.58D. Pre-AP, you're going to do problems 1 through 26, no LPT.